That person who hurt you deeply, the job you lost without explanation, and even that random event that changed everything. None of it was an accident. Before you were even born, you chose each of those moments, not as punishment or retribution, but as a sacred pact. A soul contract made by a much wiser version of yourself, the one who knew exactly what you would need. You will discover how to identify these contracts and why some seem so painful. Who really signed alongside you, yes, that difficult person is here on purpose, and the secret to rewriting the clauses of these agreements while you are still alive. Before you existed as this you that you know today, before the name, the body, and even the memories, your soul was already moving. It was there, conscious, serene, curious, and more than that, preparing for another journey on Earth. Most people imagine life as a simple birth, live and die. But on deeper levels, the story is quite different. The soul, eternal and thirsty for growth, plans each chapter with much more care than you might think. Before incarnating, you were not a victim of chance. You were a determined co-creator. At this stage, your soul asked itself, what do I still need to learn to evolve? Unconditional love, true forgiveness, resilience in the face of loss, acceptance of impermanence. These and other questions were carefully considered, and based on them, specific situations were organized. You chose, or rather your soul chose, fundamental aspects of your experience. The family you would be born into, the people who would cross your path, the potentials and challenges you would face. Here lies one of the great truths about the soul's journey. Nothing is 100% predestined. Nothing is totally free. Think of it as a board game. The beginning and the end are clear. But the moves you make, your choices and reactions, define how the game unfolds. You can choose to love or to hate, to forgive or to seek revenge, to persist or to give up. The situations appear as planned in the soul contract, but how you respond is the true lesson and the key to evolution. Free will is the tool. The soul contract is the mission. Have you ever felt that a situation was familiar, even though it was new? Or met someone and instantly felt like you had known them for lifetimes? These moments are part of the pre-birth planning. They are like glimpses that separate us from total remembrance. They signal that you are on the right path, or that you are reconnecting with part of your original plan. Sometimes a painful loss comes to reconnect you with your mission. Other times an unexpected opportunity arises to align you with your true essence. Before you were born, you knew. You knew life would not be easy. You knew the world would bring joys, pains, meetings, and farewells. And even so, courageously, you chose to come. It's easy to think of life as something that happens only to us, as if each experience, each emotion, and each challenge were exclusive and isolated. But the truth is very different. Nothing we live happens alone. We are connected to other souls in ways far deeper than the eyes can see. Before you were born, when your soul was still on the other side, all of this was already being designed, and you were not alone at that moment. There was a true spiritual gathering happening, as if it were a great circle of old friends and wise counselors, all there with one goal: to help you grow. Family, friends, lovers, and even those people who seemed to come into your life just to test you, each of them was chosen, not by whim or coincidence, but because their souls agreed to participate in your plan. It's strange to think that even those who hurt you are part of this, I know. But when we look from the soul's perspective, everything changes. What is pain here is learning there. What seems like injustice here is seen as a chance to overcome and evolve there. Some of these souls are part of what we call the soul family. They are the ones who accompany you life after life. No matter the role they assume, mother, sibling, partner, or even a demanding boss, the bond is deep and unbreakable. They are by your side to ensure that certain lessons are learned, no matter what. Other souls arrive as spiritual guides. They do not incarnate with you, but stay behind the scenes. They are those invisible pushes at the right moment, the ideas that come out of nowhere, the comfort that appears in the darkest times. They do not control your choices, but they make sure you never completely forget the path your soul chose to follow. And then, there are soulmates. Do not be mistaken in thinking this only refers to romantic relationships. Soulmates are strong and transformative connections that come to wake you up. Sometimes with love and gentleness, sometimes with pain that strips away old layers that no longer serve. They are encounters that turn the key, that make you grow by leaps and bounds. Finally, there are contracts that do not involve only you and your inner circles. Some agreements are collective. Have you ever noticed how certain events mark entire generations? Pandemics, major social movements, global changes, none of that is by chance. Many souls agree to participate in these events because they know that together they can drive the evolution of all humanity. It is an act of courage. When the soul decides to come to Earth, it does not seek random experiences. Everything is carefully chosen. There is no waste of time or energy on empty experiences. Each soul contract is an opportunity to learn what is still missing, to develop qualities that can only flourish under certain conditions. And as different as we are from each other, the lessons we choose to face are surprisingly universal. Love, for example, is one of the most common pillars. But I'm not just talking about romantic love. To truly love unconditionally without expecting anything in return is one of the most difficult tasks for the soul. In a world where we are trained to compete, protect, and distrust, opening the heart requires courage. Many souls come with contracts that involve complex relationships precisely to practice this. Loving a rebellious child, forgiving a partner who made mistakes, or accepting a friend who distanced themselves. Each situation brings the chance to expand this capacity. Speaking of forgiveness, it is another frequent and powerful lesson. Forgiving is liberating, but also challenging. When planning life, many souls choose to face betrayals, abandonments, and even humiliations, not because they enjoy suffering, but because they know that only by experiencing pain can they understand and practice genuine forgiveness. And when that happens, something changes deeply. The soul releases old burdens and creates space to move forward more lightly. Resilience is another lesson that constantly appears. Imagine facing deep losses, painful new beginnings, or situations where everything seems to go wrong. These scenarios are chosen to teach a simple yet hard to accept truth. Falling is part of the journey, but getting back up is a choice. The soul learns, little by little, not to give up on itself. Compassion also ranks high on the list. Understanding another's pain, even without directly experiencing it, is a sign of spiritual maturity. Many contracts include roles where a person needs to care, support, and give without expecting recognition. Sometimes this happens in families with illnesses, in relationships with difficult people, or in professions where serving others is the mission. The soul learns that empathy is not about pity, but about putting oneself in the other's shoes with love and respect. Then there is detachment, a lesson few embrace willingly. In general, we are attached to everything: people, status, achievements, ideas. But the soul knows that true freedom only comes when we can let go. Losses, endings, and abrupt changes are often strategies of the contract to teach that nothing is eternal. The more we resist, the more we suffer. When we accept, life flows. Finally, there is spiritual growth. This is the background of all other lessons. The soul did not come just to collect earthly experiences, but to awaken. Every challenge is an opportunity to break illusions, reconnect with the essence, and expand consciousness. In daily life, these lessons blend together. They appear in small things, in a difficult conversation, an important choice, a silent moment where everything seems lost. It's easy to ignore or get distracted. But the contract is there, steady, guiding with subtlety. And the more attentive we are, the clearer the reason for being here becomes. It is not always easy to know if we are on the right path. Life is noisy, chaotic, and full of distractions. Sometimes it feels like we are merely surviving instead of truly living. But the truth is, your soul is always giving signs. The problem is that most of the time, we do not learn how to decipher them. Fulfilling your soul contract does not mean everything will be perfect. In fact, it's the opposite. It often means facing challenges, going through phases of doubt, and encountering choices that test every fiber of your being. But amidst all of this, there are clear clues that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. One of the first and most subtle ways to notice this is through the recognition of patterns. Sometimes very similar situations repeat themselves. Different people, different contexts, but the same dynamics. You catch yourself saying things like "this again?" Exactly. These cycles repeat because there is still a lesson to be learned. And when you finally change your stance, make a different decision, or see the situation with new eyes, something transforms. The pattern ends. That is a powerful sign that you are fulfilling an important part of your contract. Another indication is synchronicities. I'm not talking about trivial coincidences. I'm talking about those connections that seem magical, like thinking of someone and they call you, or hearing exactly the phrase you needed at a critical moment, or finding the right opportunities just when you were about to give up. Synchronicities are the subtle language of the universe. It's how your guides, your soul, and the contract itself show that you are aligned. The more connected you are to your purpose, the more frequent and clear these situations become. In addition, there is an almost inexplicable sense of mission. Even when everything seems hard, there is an inner voice that will not let you give up. It's as if something inside says, "Keep going." You may not be able to define exactly what your purpose is, but you feel that you are heading in the right direction. This feeling is not accidental. It is an anchor, a confirmation that your soul is committed to the learning and evolution it chose for this life. It is also common to notice that certain relationships arise or disappear at the right time. People who enter your life bringing profound teachings, who challenge you, or who awaken dormant parts of your being. Others, when their lesson with you ends, simply drift away. These entrances and exits are not failures or random losses. They are part of the script your soul wrote. They are pieces that fit and remove themselves as needed for your growth. Finally, there is a silent yet undeniable internal shift. You start to react differently. Where there was once anger, understanding emerges. Where there was once fear, courage is born. Where there was once attachment, detachment blossoms. These small but great victories show that you are fulfilling your contract. It doesn't matter if no one else notices. You feel it. You know it. Recognizing these signs is reconnecting with the reason you are here. Life is not an accident. When you begin to recognize the traces of your soul contract unfolding in your daily life, everything starts to take on a new meaning. Even the difficult days become part of something bigger. No one likes to suffer. That is the purest truth. From a young age, we are taught to avoid pain at all costs. Running from it seems natural. But when we talk about soul contracts, suffering takes on a completely different meaning. It is not punishment, not bad luck, and certainly not a mistake of the universe. It is an essential part of the process. Before incarnating, your soul knew that living here would be intense. It knew there would be losses, disappointments, and failures. And yet, it accepted. Not because it wanted to suffer, but because it understood that it is precisely within these experiences where the greatest opportunities for growth lie. On the other side, where everything is love and wholeness, growth is slow. It is here in the midst of chaos and duality that the soul truly expands. Think about how we react when everything is going well. In moments of comfort, we rarely question anything. We don't seek deeper answers or rethink our choices. But when life tightens, when we are betrayed, when we fail, when we lose someone, something within us is activated. In those moments, the questions that really matter arise. Why is this happening to me? Or how can I come out of this stronger? This is when the soul contract reveals its most serious and transformative face. Challenges come to pull us out of our comfort zone. Not because the universe is cruel, but because without them, the soul stagnates. It's easy to love when everything is easy. It's difficult to keep your heart open in the face of rejection. It's easy to be grateful when everything is going right. It's hard to be thankful in the middle of the storm. These are exactly the situations the soul chose to face in order to develop virtues that cannot be born in calmness. Loss is one of the harshest and most effective teachers. Losing something or someone forces us to look inward. It forces us to let go of control and accept that not everything is in our hands. The ego hates this. It fights, resists, and rebels. But the soul, silently, knows this process is necessary. The pain of letting go is, in fact, the fertilizer for the blossoming of new consciousness. Another very common trial in soul contracts is frustration. Those moments when you try, you strive, but nothing turns out as expected. Instead of giving in to despair, the soul invites you to develop patience, resilience, and humility. It wants you to learn to flow with life without clinging to results. And then there are the difficult relationships. People who seem to have been sent to test all your limits. Sometimes they are family members, other times partners or colleagues. These souls agreed long ago to play challenging roles, to teach you about boundaries, self-love, and especially forgiveness. It's hard to accept this when you're in the middle of conflict, but in time the realization comes. They were there not to destroy you, but to shape you. Understanding the role of suffering in soul contracts does not make the pain smaller, but it gives it a purpose. This changes everything. From victims, we become conscious learners. Pain stops being something we just endure and becomes something we face with dignity and presence. It is there, in the eye of the storm, that the soul smiles. It knows that at the end of each trial, something inside you will have changed forever. It's tempting to think that at birth, everything is already rigidly defined, as if we had signed an unbreakable contract and now we just have to fulfill every clause without questioning. But the reality is much more complex than that. Soul contracts are not prisons. They are living, flexible agreements that can, and often should, be reviewed along the journey. Nothing in life is fixed. We change. Our priorities change. What made sense yesterday may no longer make sense today. And just as we adjust our goals and dreams, the soul also has the right and wisdom to adapt its plans. This is essential to understand that soul contracts are not synonymous with immutable destiny. They are more like guidelines, like maps that point out possible paths but do not force you to follow them at all costs. Along life, you encounter crossroads, situations where you must decide whether to keep insisting on something that no longer makes sense or to have the courage to take a different route. This is where contract revision happens. It may be silent, almost imperceptible, but it is there. When you choose to leave a toxic relationship, change careers, or break free from family patterns that trapped you, you are renegotiating your agreement with the universe. You are saying, "This no longer serves me. I am ready for new lessons," and the universe listens. In fact, it is always listening. With each conscious choice, you update your soul contract. No complex ritual is necessary for this. Sometimes it all starts with a simple enough, a firm decision, an internal closure, and the energy shifts. What once seemed blocked opens up. New people come into your life, opportunities arise, and suddenly the road ahead looks different. There are also moments when, without realizing it, the soul itself decides to change the contract. This happens when you evolve faster than expected or when certain lessons have already been fully absorbed. In these cases, it is as if the old agreement is torn up to make way for something more aligned with who you have become. That's why, during certain periods of life, everything seems to fall apart or lose meaning. What is really happening is a profound update, and although uncomfortable, this is absolutely necessary. Nothing, however, prevents some contracts from being permanently closed. When certain connections have fulfilled their purpose, it is natural for them to dissolve. This is not a sign of failure or abandonment. It is spiritual maturity. Knowing when it is time to move on is part of the learning process itself. Staying tied to agreements that no longer serve only brings stagnation and suffering. In the end, it is an act of self-love. It is the soul telling itself that it is ready for more, that it no longer needs to relive old stories, that it has already extracted the nectar from what has been lived. It is very common to confuse karma with soul contracts. At first glance, they seem to talk about the same thing, results of past actions shaping our current experience. But in fact, there is a crucial difference between them. And understanding this difference completely changes the way we see life and what we go through. Karma is consequence. It is the energy generated by thoughts, actions, and emotions, not only in this life, but also in others. It is neutral, not good or bad. It simply responds. When you sow kindness and compassion, you reap experiences aligned with that vibration. When you cultivate hatred, disrespect, or selfishness, you will inevitably have to face the reflection of that at some point. Karma is the return of what you have emitted. Simple and direct. It does not judge. It simply balances. It is the pure law of cause and effect. Soul contracts, on the other hand, are choices. They do not arise as an automatic response, but as a conscious plan. Before being born, your soul, along with others, decided which lessons needed to be faced so that growth could occur. This involves who you will meet, what types of challenges you will face, and even which gifts you will need to develop. The soul contract is essentially a commitment to evolution. It is something assumed by the free will of the soul, not imposed by cause and effect. While karma can be understood as a natural law, the soul contract is more like a carefully designed script. One serves to rebalance, the other to direct. And the most interesting thing is that they often intertwine. For example, if in past lives you caused suffering to someone, part of your contract may include meeting that soul again, but this time to heal what was left. In this case, karma and the contract act together. The first calls for adjustment. The second defines how it will be lived. Many people believe that karma is punishment, but it is not. It is learning. And soul contracts are too. Neither exists to punish. They are perfect mechanisms to ensure that nothing remains unfinished, so that each soul has the chance to grow, understand the impact it causes, and choose a better path. Now, before we talk about how to access or read your soul contract, I want to share some special news. Today, the card is officially open for the Quantum Thinking Challenge in celebration of Mother's Day. You, my dear subscribers here on the channel, get an exclusive gift, a special coupon that guarantees a discount only until midnight on Sunday. The link and coupon are in the first pinned comment. Now let's continue with the topic and understand how to access or read your soul contract. Talking about soul contracts may sound too mystical to some. It gives the impression that it is something kept in a vault in the universe, completely out of our reach, but that is far from the truth. Your contract is not an unreachable secret. In fact, it is constantly whispering to you, through signs, intuitions, and feelings that many ignore. The first and most accessible way to get closer to your contract is something everyone has experienced: intuition. That feeling that arises out of nowhere, pushing you in a direction the rational mind does not understand. Have you ever been in situations where everything seemed right on paper, but something inside you screamed, "This is not the way"? Or the opposite, an inexplicable call toward something new, even without guarantees. That is your soul trying to remind you of what it planned. When we follow that inner voice, paths seem to open more smoothly. Another very powerful way is through dreams. While the body rests, the soul is released from the ties of ego and logic. In many dreams, especially those that seem intense and symbolic, pieces of your contract come to the surface. It is as if the unconscious tries to give you clues about what really matters. Recurring dreams, encounters with people who have passed on, or situations filled with emotion are more than random. They are coded messages that deserve attention. Moreover, meditation is a valuable key to accessing the deeper layers of the contract. When you silence the noise of the world and turn inward, you create space for subtler perceptions to reveal themselves. It is not about having mystical visions or hearing voices from beyond. It is about creating an environment where you can connect with what your soul already knows. Many people, when meditating with this intention, report sudden clarity, changes in perspective, and even the remembrance of ancient decisions made before birth. Another resource often mentioned on the spiritual path is accessing the Akashic records. They are described as a great vibrational archive containing the history of all souls, including contracts and choices made throughout incarnations. Guided by experienced therapists, or even through well-developed personal practices, it is possible to access these records to better understand what your soul came to work on here. However, it is important to remember, this requires responsibility and a true desire for growth, not superficial curiosity. There is still another simple yet extremely revealing way, observing the patterns in your own life. Sometimes you don't need to look far. Just honestly examine the experiences that repeat themselves, the challenges that keep coming back, and the themes that dominate your existence. If life insists on presenting you with the same lessons, it's because they are part of the contract. Recognizing this is already an act of reading and understanding. The contract is not hidden because the universe wants to make things difficult. It is veiled because the journey of remembering is, in itself, part of the learning process. When you decide to seek sincerely and with presence, what once seemed hidden naturally begins to reveal itself. Some soul contracts are beautiful. They bring growth, expand consciousness, and push us toward our true self. But not all are like that. There are contracts that over time become burdens, bonds that instead of teaching begin to imprison. And when that happens, it's a sign that the time has come to free yourself. It is important to understand that at the time they were made, even these contracts had a purpose. Perhaps you agreed to live a certain situation to learn about boundaries, inner strength, or self-love. But the soul is movement. It grows, learns, and above all, knows when a lesson has already been assimilated. Insisting on maintaining contracts that have already served their purpose is like attending a classroom after having passed the test. It no longer makes sense. Breaking these harmful agreements is about awareness and choice. It is about looking at what has repeated for years, patterns of pain, relationships that drain your energy, beliefs that limit your light, and affirming, I acknowledge what I have lived. I am grateful for the learning, but now I choose to move on freely. This is not ingratitude, it is spiritual maturity. Some people feel this need for release as deep exhaustion, others as an unease that won't go away. Life begins to send clear signs. You feel stuck. And at this point, the opportunity to reframe arises. Releasing harmful contracts does not mean erasing the past, but transforming your relationship with it. There are practical ways to start this process. One of the most powerful is forgiveness. And here I am not only talking about forgiving others, I am mainly talking about forgiving yourself. For having accepted less than you deserved, for having stayed in situations that already called for an end, for having forgotten your own essence at some point. Forgiveness frees because it dissolves the chains that keep the contract active. Intention comes into play again, because the soul responds to clarity. No complex rituals are necessary. Sometimes a deep conversation with yourself, an honest letter, or a sincere meditation are enough to initiate the energetic release. If there is one question that echoes deep in the hearts of almost everyone, it is, what is my purpose? Amid routine daily challenges and the ups and downs we all face, this doubt appears, and when it does, it's a clear sign that the soul is calling. Wanting to remind you that we did not come here just to survive or accumulate fleeting achievements. There is something greater behind everything. And soul contracts are directly connected to this. Life's purpose is not a grand mission for everyone. Sometimes it reveals itself in simple gestures, such as healing a family lineage marked by conflict. Other times, it is about inspiring others through personal overcoming. In each case, the soul contract acts as an initial script. It points out the lessons the soul committed to living and at the same time suggests directions for the purpose to be manifested. Many people discover they are following their contract when they begin to feel fulfilled even in the face of efforts and obstacles. It is that feeling that, despite the fatigue, what they are doing fills them. It could be caring for others, creating something that helps the collective, or simply being a silent example of resilience and love. When you are aligned with what your soul came to experience, the external world no longer determines how fulfilled you feel. Often, finding your purpose is a process of listening. Listening to what truly resonates within you, far from other people's expectations. The soul contract does not dictate careers or material achievements. It speaks about qualities that need to be expressed: love, compassion, wisdom, strength, truth. How you manifest this is the part that only you can decide.